Hi, Curtis. Well, I'm going to try, I'm just trying to think how do we approach this here? So my approach where I've tried to correct you of things I believe you don't understand correctly has been wrong. So it's been sort of, it sounds like criticism. I don't mean it as criticism. And this is going to sort of sound critical too, but again, I don't mean it as critical. To me, it's sort of like Plato's allegory of the cave. You can sit and you can watch the images against the wall, and that can be a reality, and you'll enjoy that reality. But if you look at how the images are made, sometimes they're not made in a way that that mimic that reality, or the reality that you're seeing on the wall represents it truly. So to me, you're sort of looking at this wall of audio stuff through waveforms, but I deal with the data or the stuff that creates the waveforms in the first place. So it's two totally different worlds. And again, I'm not saying you're not smart or anything like that, or I'm smarter. It's just how you look at things differently. And the big disconnect between us is how we look at the data. And they're both right. The way you look at it is right in one context. So for instance, in one of your later emails that we talked about a long time ago, you said, oh, it works and that's all I care about. So it doesn't make a difference to me, Max, because it works. And absolutely, that's absolutely right. It's right for me too. I mean, I do whatever works, you know. But the question still remains, but is it working the way that you think it's working? And what implications might that have if you have, if how you think it's working is not the way it is really working? So I'm not going to approach like how you look at it. Well, I'm going to cover it a little bit, but what I'm hoping you can do, or in this video I can do, is for you to get an idea of how I look at it, and for you to think on your own, well, okay, this is how he looks at it. Is this true or not? And okay, I say, I think it's true for his perspective. It's true. Now, how does it fit into how I look at things? So that's what I'm hoping, is that you can take what I see and then integrate it into what you see. And I think when you integrate it into what you see, I believe that certain things that you say or believe, you'll be like, no, you know, that's not exactly correct. It's not wrong in allowing you to get the, get the audio you want, let's just say, but it's wrong in the sense that you're trusting that the equipment is doing something in a way that it's not doing. But I'm getting ahead of the story. So, but let's just start again. This is just an overview of the stuff. So here's, I'm going to switch now to screen view. So what is a waveform? This is a screen grab from your video, and you have a waveform that you show in your video. And so for me, it's a visual representation of discrete numbers. But for you, it's a visual representation of sound. Again, they're both correct. For me, the pattern of waves is a phenomenon of how we visualize the numbers. Ultimately, here it is not a property of the numbers, right? Because I deal with the numbers and the data. You don't deal with the numbers and the data. So for you, your first point of contact with audio data is a waveform. So for you, it's a pattern of sound waves that we can interpret as loud, soft, distorted, noisy. The specific numbers are not important, right? And then for me, we scale from full to partial, and you scale from partial to full. So I'm gonna, let me find that video, and I'm gonna play it. Let me play that video. It's this one right here. So let's just play this.
Why do we bother with 32-bit float recording at all? And here's why, I think.
I'm looking at my waveform, but I'm actually not
recording of
hearing
spoken word,
it.
and I'm speaking here specifically about talking, spoken word audio. The tangible benefit that I see is that if you set the gain too high during your recording, you can reduce the gain in post-production, and you can probably recover without distortion.
Getting to the part where, okay, so right here. See, I would always look at the video starting here. I would always look at a waveform or a chart, starting with the full range of the data that I have. I'm going to get that in a second. So I always start with this and then might go back and look at it in this way. I would never look at it this way and then go look at it in this way. And that's a difference that between how we look at the data. Okay, but I just wanted to show you. So this, when you showed this, this triggers me because I'm like, why are you doing this? This is not correct, right? In my world, right? I'm not saying it's not correct in your world, but it's not correct in my world. I would never do this. I would always start out with this. What is the full data that I'm looking at? And then I might zoom into part of the data. Okay. So when I try and study this issue, or I've looked into this, when I started on this stuff, let me just repeat again. It all began not with you, all right? It began with a guy at Rode Microphones that a few years ago published a video that said, Rode now has 32-bit float in their wireless thing. And you point out in your new video, some of anyway, you're getting it now. And he says, you no longer need the gain knob, and clipping is a thing of the past. And I didn't know. I mean, I suspected that was wrong, right? It's not that I felt it was wrong, but I couldn't prove it to myself or to anybody else it was wrong. So I spent hundreds of hours looking at the data. I'm going to show it to you somewhat, and to prove to myself what's working. So I went on my own scientific exploration, my own hypothesis, evidence. Does it check out? The whole process, right? The whole scientific process. And that's how I've come to the conclusions I've come here. I didn't look at him, or I don't look at your stuff and I'm like, oh, well, that's wrong because they don't understand this or that. I think it's wrong because they're not seeing this thing or that thing. If they saw this thing or that thing, they wouldn't say it, right? But how do you communicate that stuff, right? It's very difficult. But anyway, I just want to say that what you're going to see here is part of the process I have of ascertaining, is it true that 32-bit float makes clipping a thing of the past and that you don't need the gain knob? Now, in your video, you clearly say it does not reduce clipping. So you've already, on the stuff we discussed, you've already on your own investigations determined that yes, it has nothing to do with clipping, which I've said right from the beginning. That's number one. But the number two thing on whether 32-bit float makes the gain knob that you don't need it, on that thing you're not quite sure about. And I'm hoping that, again, as you understand the data from my world, if you start looking at the data from going the data out and not starting with the waveform and height, basically what's happening is you're looking at the waveform and you're hypothecating or you're speculating on what the data is behind the waveform. And that's where you're getting in trouble, because propaganda from the industry is basically saying, oh, well, this is what the data looks like. And to me, that's wrong. And they should know better. They're engineers. That's why I get upset. It's like fraudulent for them to say that. So I'm going saying, okay, Curtis, forget about the waveform for a second. Let's start with the data from the ground up. As soon as you start speaking through a microphone, what is happening? How does the data get built up? How does it end up in that waveform? And when you understand how the data is created and how the data ends up in a waveform or any digital audio device, once you understand that, I believe you'll understand that the gain knob, that 32-bit float cannot get rid of the gain knob, because it's not changing the digital aspect of the data does not have anything to do with the data. The data comes first. Without it, nothing else happens, right? I think we can agree with that. Anyway, and I'm sorry that this is rambling, going all over the place. Normally, I do try and make lists of this is the points, but I just get it just goes all up. So it would become 20 hours. I just can't. Anyway. All right, so the next thing I want to show you. So what I did is I created a WAV file of myself, and I'm just going to play some of that WAV file. The rain in Spain falls mainly playing. Woo! 1, 2, 3. That was quiet. Okay, goodbye. So, yeah, it's probably very loud. I apologize. So, all right, so that was my 7-second WAV file. And then what I did is I created a little Python program. Where is it? Write any wave text to integers, okay? Oops, I gotta go here. And so basically what this is this is a Python program where I'll take a wave file and I'll load it into a NumPy array. This is all gonna be Greek to you. But essentially, all WAV files are just integers, and each integer represents a voltage at a certain point of time. I'll get into that a little bit later. So anyway, but I have, WAV files are different. They all have different formats. They can have 32-bit, 8-bit, 16-bit. So I have to figure out, okay, what kind of format is it? Because that's how I'm going to want to, that's what kind of integers I'm going to want. So I try and figure out all that. That's what goes on here. And then I want to put into one channel because we're dealing with just my voice. So all this gobbledygook, all it really does is it's going to create a file of integers for this WAV file. And this is it right here. So I'm going to open this up in just a text editor because this is just, so it's 336,000 lines, right, of data points. And let me just scroll through some of this. So this is that voice you just heard me. This is it. There's nothing like, I feel like, and this has to be like sort of like a magic show. I'm showing you the tricks. There's nothing behind my hands. I'm showing you everything. There's nothing hidden. There's no frequencies and Fourier analysis and noise floors and 0 dBs. None of that. Like, again, you look at the world in that way, but there's none of that, right? When you're recording audio, all you're doing is you're creating numbers. And each number, so if you look at this file, so we have 336,000 lines. So I can tell you what the sampling rate is, right? So we have 336,000 numbers from 7 seconds. So I'm doing this right on the fly. I mean, so I don't know. I don't remember what sampling rate I used. What was it? 336,000. Let's just say that, right? And it's divided by 7 seconds. So I'm going to say this divided by, well, actually, let's just do it exact. So no, let's not do it exact. I'm getting the weeds here. This divided by 7 seconds, right? Right? 48,000 samples per second. So that's good. The number came out just the way I wanted it. So if we look at the data here of my voice that I just played for you, that I recorded, there are 7 seconds. This is sampled at 48 thousandths of a second. So what this data is, so right here, let's just find our first data point where we get some amplitude. Well, it doesn't make a difference. Okay. So this number right here is the voltage let's just say at the 7/48 thousandths of a second, right? And you understand this. I don't need to explain all this to you, right? So that's what sampling is, right? At each 48 thousandths of a second, we're taking a number that represents the voltage that is coming out of your microphone, right? And there's no quantization here. Like, again, there are a lot of things in your video you say, like, this triggered me. It's like, there's no quantization here. There's no waveform. There's no noise floor. There's no distortion. All we have from a microphone as data is an amplitude at a moment in time. And so at the, say here, like at the 7/48 thousandths of a second, our voltage is 455. And that voltage represents the strength of the loudness of the sound, right? And then at the 8th, 48 thousandths of a second, we get this thing. And this is what we get all the way through. All 336,897 samples of our audio file. There's nothing more or less in that data. So I want to be, again, very clear. Again, showing everything. There's nothing here. When you record on any of your microphones, it goes through a preamp which raises the voltage to a voltage that the electronics can quantify in a sense, that can make it assign a number to. So you raise the voltage up to this voltage that it can say, okay, this voltage is 455, or this voltage is 1032, right? And it does that every 48 thousandths of a second. And that's all it does. There's no waveforms in the data. Like if you look at any data point, I guess what I'm saying is that you can't, there's no sine wave here. There's no noise. There's no floor. There's just data points. All that is a later interpretation. It's a phenomenon. It's how our brain reacts. We can also do a certain kind of mathematical analysis to analyze what it is, but it is not in any, oops, I meant to show this to you. Like, again, these numbers, it is not in any of these numbers. They're just numbers of an amplitude at a point of time. And I need to just keep hammering on this. So whenever you talk about audio data, you can't say that there's something in this number that is not in this number, right? There's no sine wave in the number 2197. The number 2197 does not represent a speck of noise. It does not represent a low frequency or a high frequency or anything like that. That's all later. That's all something that we infer later, either biologically or through some sort of mathematical analysis. It is not in the data. So one of the issues that you're having is you're looking at the waveform, and again, you're thinking there's more stuff than there is. There isn't. There's only those numbers. That's it. So, all right. So I think I belabored that enough. So let's just say we take the, why is this, where is this? Test 7 chart. That's weird. Why we don't save. Okay, so let me get, okay, so now I'm going to take the, let's take the chart again. What happened? Did I blow away the, oh, yeah, I blew away the, sorry. Okay, so I'm going to have to take the, I'm going to recreate this again. So I'm going to take the integers right here. I'm going to drag, oops, sorry. I need to go back into, this is, believe me, I'm totally admire what you do and how the quality of your videos. Oh my God, I make 10 mistakes a second. It's hard. It's hard. I can't do it. I really admire what you can do. All right, so I'm going to take my audio data. I'm going to pull it into this file. I'm also going to save this recording just because I'm OBS and you know how it is. And then I'll start again. All right, so I've taken the numbers and I put it into this file. So when I'm looking, or anybody is looking at data, audio data, let's say I want to graph these numbers. So I'm going to take all these numbers, and I'm just going to do a very quick, say, Excel, graph me these numbers. And I'm going to do a line chart like this. Now, you'll notice that the scale is above and below the highest number and the lowest number. So what Excel is saying, okay, well, I figured out your maximum value is this and your minimum value is this. I'm going to scale 20% below it, and I'm going to show this to you. So this is how anybody would work. Any data engineer would work with this data, or anybody who even creates the software that shows your viewing stuff. And again, let me say, I've created so many charts in my life. Oh my God. So again, you're looking at a waveform as a user. I look at it as somebody who actually creates, in a sense, charts for a living. So, and works with data for a living. So I don't look at it the same way you're looking at it. So when you showed that chart where it was, so what that chart, what you're showing is I could create this chart myself. So I mean, let's just say that I go into, where is this? No, I'm gonna go into, okay, go into the scale. Okay, so I'm going to say, I could have said, okay, the access is, the minimum is going to be always be 2000, and the maximum is always going to be 2002. Okay. Right, I could have opened the chart like this. So when you opened the data in your waveform and you show this, to me, it's like, that's not fair. I mean, that's not right. Why would you show it that way? And this is what the manufacturers are doing in these waveform things, is it's set up, let's just say, to normally expect all the data to be within this bound. But then if you open up 32-bit, it looks like this, and then you can go in and what you can do is say, oh look, but you see I load in 32-bit float and it looks like it's clipping here, but look, what I can do is I can actually go get the data. Look, I got the data back. Well, you didn't get the data back, right? You initially started with a waveform that was truncating your data. And then you went and you basically expanded the minimum maximum of your scale so that you could see the data. So I would never do a video where I'm showing audio data where I'm not showing the full scope of the data first. And then I might say, okay, let's get rid of this. Let's just say that I'm looking at part of the data somewhere here. So I just want to look at, part of the waveform. So I'm picking out part of the waveform. I'm going to put in a chart, right? I'm going to put that in. And that, again, because it's showing the full thing, but remember it was 4,000. So really on the scale, if we scaled it the way it was scaled before, because right now it's like, it's cutting the maximum because it doesn't see any data there. But this is really fairly what it should show between 4,000 and negative 4,000, 4,000. But we could actually probably do 35 to 25. If we really want to see the shape of the waveform, then yes, we could put the minimum, we could put negative 35, and the maximum we could put 25. So now we've expanded it, and so we can better see what the waveform looks. And that's definitely what you want to do with a waveform monitor, or you're analyzing a chart, is you want to focus in on the data that you're interested in. But you need to understand what the data is behind it, what its minimum and maximum is. And yeah, you can't go. So what you're basically implying in some of your videos, and again, I know you don't mean to, but what you imply in some of your videos is that when you show somebody this, that this data does not exist. It does exist. And then even if you show, okay, here, the data was there, right? Okay, show the data is there. Then the point is that you say, well, because it's 32-bit float and it wasn't 24-bit float. And is that correct or is that not correct? I mean, I think that is something, again, that you sort of need to think about, to think about. But I mean, anyway, I just wanted to show you that this is how that for your takeaways here is that where did this data go? Where does this data keep disappearing? I don't know. Anyway, oh, here it is. It's right here. So, what did I do? Oh, I see. This is now saving as a text file. Anyway, the data, the audio data are only discrete values at certain points of time. There are no waves. The wave is something we see as we graph the data. It is not in the data itself. There's nothing in any of these numbers that suggest this graph. And that the graph, how we scale it, is based on what we know about the data set. Okay, so I'm even getting lost myself here. But I'm hoping through this ramble of almost half an hour that you can take how I look at data, how I work at data, how I did my scientific investigation of the 32-bit float, how you can integrate what I see into how you see the waveform and what's going on. And to just fast forward and quick answer the questions, you already know that it has nothing to do with clipping. And I explain in my essay that there are three types of clipping. There's clipping, physical clipping of the diaphragm, the magnet against the back, and you know all this, right? And then there's a second thing, it's a clipping when you drive the preamp past the maximum voltage of the amplifier, its ability to quantize those numbers. And then there's a third type of clipping, which is where I think you're a little hazy on, which is where you're purposely changing the scale and you're truncating numbers mathematically that you don't need to truncate. That somebody's doing it, you're doing it by accident, and then you're fixing it by actually not doing it, by putting the numbers in a data space that can fit them, right? Instead of mistakenly truncating them and saying you're fixing them by moving them around. No, they're always there. You shouldn't have made the mistake, or one shouldn't have made the mistake in the first place. So that's what I wanted to point out. Everything about waves that you're seeing, again, it's only a visualization of data that has nothing wave-like or noise floor in it or anything like that. And so when we talk about noise floor, again, the noise floor, that is something you hear that, or something you see in the data. So basically if you isolated all the data, so you only showed those points in the noise floor and you took them all out, if you took all these data points out, right? Let's just say that that all these low numbers are noise floor. All you're saying is like, okay, if I take all these numbers below something and below 200 or whatever, above 200, that removes the noise. I don't want the noise in it, so I'm going to remove those numbers. Yeah. I mean, you can do it mathematically with an algorithm. You could do it just by ear or using the software. But again, the noise floor, it's an interpretation. It's not in the numbers themselves. So noise floor is only basically what you're saying is like, at what number do I start with the real audio that I'm listening to, right? And it's not perfect because actually, you can't tell what's noise and what's part of the voice. And the more you start trying to take out noise, the more you're actually taking out pieces of sound that belong in the voice. That's why it's an art, right? It's not a dead science like this is a number. So that explains noise floor. Noise floor means nothing to me or to any data engineer because you're just talking about, it's just numbers. Like noise floor is something you're making up about what data you want to include in your ultimate audio file. And then the second thing, the 0 dB full scale. I explained this in my thing, and I think you get it. But again, you're speaking in, like everything you speak in is dBs. And that's, if you're going to work with audio in the real world, that's what I would deal with. I mean, I deal with it myself. But think about it, right? Why on some cameras, right, on video cameras, there's a gain knob in dBs, like for the picture, right? So if you want to boost the brightness of a picture, you would move up the gain knob. But in the other cameras, it's ISO. So if you want to double the gain, you might go from 0 to 10 dB of gain on one video camera. And another video camera, you go from 100 ISO to 200 ISO, right? Why do you have the two different things? Well, you have the two different things because ISO was a determination of sensitivity of film, chemical film, and gain was an electronic term used by electrical engineers in the first video cameras. And that's why you have it. But they both do the same thing in the background, but that's why you have two different names. And I think the epiphany, when the light bulb will go off your head, you'll be like, wait, dBs, ISO, all these gains, it's all like, they're all talking about the same thing, right? But the same thing is split into two different processes. One is on the electronics end, when you're amplifying a voltage, you're changing the gain by amplifying a voltage. And another is when you're just moving the data around, so it appears when it's played back that's louder, but it's not louder. You're just moving the data into the space where it generates a louder sound with the amplifier. So okay, I think I think this is enough. Like, I don't know if you can watch this whole 30-minute thing, but I hope this is helpful. Please feel free to answer any questions. And again, I'm sorry for any pain I've caused, or I've never said that you were colluded with the manufacturers. But it's just been frustrating to me because I feel a lot of bad knowledge has been passed around, and it hurts. It hurts filmmakers. It hurts people who want to do audio because it's just wrong. Like, if you want to do good audio, you have to learn how to set your gain properly. I can't do it well, but I do know how important it is. And so when somebody says you don't need the gain knob, you can use this thing, it annoys me because what they're really doing in their box is 32-bit float has nothing to do with it. They're just using limiters and automatic gain control, a technology that's been around for 70 years. And that really, really torques me. When somebody's saying they have some magic new technology, when it's just the same technology from 70 years ago, but they're now calling it 32-bit float because it is a different data format. and that's how they're doing it. It just, again, it just really upsets me, and I'm sorry if I've been unpolite to you, or I've mischaracterized, things you're saying. Anyway, well, I keep going on. I got to stop. So anyway, any questions? Hope this helps. And thanks again for doing a video. You're the first one that you're getting onto it. You're figuring it out, and your viewers will be the better for it. Okay, thanks for watching.